alongside the beautiful,
Oh, wow. Thank you.
inside and out Steven Simcox.
So good to be here.
I don't think people talk about you that way.
They don't, no.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's something that's ever happened.
Nope. But first time for everything.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
What would you say your celebrity doppelganger is?
I don't know. You know, when I was in high school, I don't think this was meant as a compliment, but if anyone watched the show Even Stevens growing up, Garrett, you remember Even Stevens?
A little bit.
There was a kid on there that I think was named Beans. Yeah, Emery knows Beans. And I had some similarities to Beans. I don't know what Beans has done with his life. I feel like I saw him. My kids watched Cheaper by the Dozen recently, like the Steve Martin. And I forget
in that?
Yeah, I think Beans was in that as like the neighbor boy that the other children kind of corrupted. But yeah, that's the only one I can really think of. Thank you, brother.
No, I'm looking at Beans right now. I mean, I would have had to seen you when you were a kid, which I've only known you since you were in college. So not really all that long. Stephen Anthony Lawrence is his name.
Oh, his name is Steven. There you go.
Yeah,
serendipitous.
Steven, he's a V Steven, not a PH.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, for whatever that's worth to you.
Yeah. Well, Stephen Curry's kind of ruined that for us too.
Oh yeah.
I get more of that now. I get like Stephen. I'm like, no, I don't shoot 3-pointers.
Let's see.
Is he in like? Does it give his age? Is he in his 30s, 40s?
He is 34.
Okay, so I'm 31. So yeah,
Okay.
about that same age.
Yeah. He was in an episode of Weeds in 2010
All right.
where he played Keith. And then he hasn't done anything since 2014. Okay. So on to the next event in his life, which is probably conventions. So my doppelganger, I've been often told, is Kevin James.
That's not bad, yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. And the sickest burn ever thrown at me in my life. Jarrett's already laughing. He knows the story.
Yep.
I was taking a date to go see the movie Hitch, of which he is one of the stars. And just so happens that day I was not wearing my contacts because my eyes were a little dry. So I wore my glasses. And in the movie, he wore glasses. And on the poster, he wore glasses. Even though most of the posters, here's the thing. Here's what's messed up about it. Most of the posters are just Will Smith and maybe Eva Mendes. But the one that our local theater had, actually, it wasn't even a poster. It was one of those, like, stand-up things. And so at the stand-up, I'm walking in to see the movie, and a 13-year-old kid goes, "Ha, look, he's going to see his own movie." And here's how much it's followed me. The 2014 Baylor basketball team used to call me Paul Blart. And then I heard them call me that, and I thought it was funny. And then I remember them being like, oh man, I was like, dude, I get it. You're not the first ones, but yes, much.
Well, I've got
much Kevin James.
I've gotten some Kevin James comparisons too. So last off season, I did an interview where, and I won't drag you guys into this because I know you're good friends with Joe McGuire, and I don't have any beef with him. Yeah. But I was talking about Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hype around Tech at the time.
Yeah.
And I think the line that I said was, you have to do more than just tweet out Ric Flair gifts to get, recognition in the offseason. And Tech fans did not like that. And so they started calling me Paul Blart. Because, I guess they kind of saw a chubby white guy and was like, that's the comparison to make. But, I mean, there are worse people to be compared to.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's a wildly successful comedian and actor. And, I feel like I married a girl way above my station like he did in King of Queens. Like... so I think it's fine. I think everything's worked out for me.
Sure.
Now, would I rather people go, "Oh crap, there's Josh Hartnett"? Yes, I would. Like, I would love people to come up to me and go, like, "Oh my God, I really, really loved Rookie," whatever the movie he did with Harrison Ford was that they both hated because they hated each other's guts. I'm trying to think of any kind of Josh Hartnett movie
Somebody just saw Trap and they're like, oh
yeah, like
there's Josh.
There's no, hey, I haven't seen it yet. It's I'm sorry, yeah. So
sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah. I loved you in the 10 minutes of the Bear you showed up in this year. So, I'm I get that. So, Stephen, we have the Wednesday Wheel today, which will be
Olympic sports.
Olympic sports.
Yeah, how good would you do in these select Olympic sports? I saw some of your commentary on social media this week about some of the, I guess, ancillary sports that are on during this time of the day, like USA.
Yeah.
Handball, right?
Handball. Look, do you agree with my assessment on handball?
I forgot your exact
It looks
take.
like something that you invented in a church gymnasium.
Yes.
With mismatching sports equipment, and then
subsequently
added rules as you got more people to play.
Mm-hmm. Definitely does. I was recently.
And then water polo is handball, but you got to take a trip to the water park.
Mm-hmm.
And, or you were at a pool, and you're like, oh, we're going to do that game, but we'll do it in the water.
Yeah, I was commiserating with a friend the other day, and I should have asked my kids about this. I don't really know what they do in PE anymore. Garrett, do you have any idea? I mean, I know they do some like running and like stretching.
I think it just varies. It's like just a lot of running, and I think they just cut them loose on the playground. I don't even know if there really is PE traditional.
But back in the day, like we would just play all these kinds of variations of dodgeball. Like essentially that was what it was. There was some game where we'd have like bowling pins lined up against the wall. And you're trying to hit those. But it was all kind of coming back to, like, you're trying to hit somebody in the face with a ball, with a flying object. And I guess they probably don't do that as much anymore. But handball, yes. Church gym or, like, your fifth grade PE teacher's like, hey, here's a new thing we can do where we just kind of play some version of basketball / dodgeball.
One time on a youth retreat, we played towel hockey. And it was something that was in clearly the youth minister, who was my mother's, but the youth minister handbook. And they're like, you can do this to get their energy out after a long day of praying. And
then you circle up and you're like, man, you know who?
That's towel hockey is where I found out in 7th grade I'm a bit competitive.
You got that dog in you?
It didn't. Here's the thing. It didn't occur to me that this was just towel hockey for Jesus. Didn't. At no point, and he knows this, and I'll admit it now in front of God and everyone, was he on my mind during towel hockey. I was there to win.
So like you were using towels as the stick?
You use brooms as the stick. So it's brooms and towels. I feel like maybe J.K. Rowling saw this and said I could make that a thing. I could make it Quidditch.
Got it. Yeah.
Which Baylor has a Quidditch team. And
do they?
Yeah, it's like they're a Quidditch group. And I have driven past them on U Parks a couple times playing Quidditch. And it is a sight to behold, man.
Do they like put the broom between their legs?
Yeah, and run and try to throw the ball in the thing. So
don't let the Baptist Church get a hold of that. I couldn't read Harry Potter as a kid. Witchcraft situation. My parents didn't want me to get involved in that. So I don't know.
Oh man.
But good for them. Quidditch, all right.
We've come a long way since 1625, except we haven't.
It's better than sing. Okay, I'll stop. We're getting a little too inside baseball.
Yeah. So, I do. We were going to talk about Olympic sports and like what
we could do in them.
What we could do in them, or like if we started to try how it could be. And Stephen has picked some that are sports that we know.
Yeah.
And some that are
kind of random,
a little more obscure, niche sports. Okay, Stephen, you were on Locked On TCU, Locked On Horned Frogs, and TCU has made some interesting coaching additions to their staff, and they're doing it where Todd Graham is going to work with the offensive coordinator,
yes,
and Dana Holgerson is going to work with the defensive coordinator to help prepare them for each opponent each week, which I think is very intelligent, is a very cool way of looking about it. It is funny to me that Sonny Dykes, and we've gotten to know him a little bit, he has surrounded himself. He's the nicest guy on the coaching staff, at least outwardly. But you start looking at the coaches, he's got some guys who have edge to them.
He's built like a Suicide Squad of coaching staff.
Yes, he has.
It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, Andy Avalos, he partied ways with Boise State, and it was kind of vague, but basically the players were like, we're done with this guy. Like, we don't really want to mess with him anymore. It's not working. Please leave. Todd Graham, sort of known for being a prickly personality. I think that's a very generous way to say it. It kind of went under the radar, but when he was at Hawaii, like, it was so bad, like the government got involved. Like, they had hearings in the state Senate where they were like, man, this dude's really mean to these players. Like, he was so mean to the players that they were like calling their state representatives trying to get him out of there. And I guess eventually he decided to just move on. And Todd and Dana won't be involved like with the players per se. As you said, it's going to be more like coaches coaching coaches. But yeah, it is really curious that he's got a lot of big personalities in those rooms. And from what I can tell, he's a pretty hands-off guy. Like, he wants to let people do their jobs. He wants to put people in situations to succeed and kind of stay out of the way. But I wonder if he's going to have to intervene at some point, because this is just a lot of big names. And I mean, Dana's like a cool guy, but he's also been running like the show for a long time. Yeah. He won't necessarily be interacting directly with Kendall, but it's just a weird dynamic. And I think for both those coaches, I mean, they're really just trying to like have a job for a year and then possibly jump to something else.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a testy dynamic at times, having all those big personalities in one room.
I think Dana and Kendall will work together fine. Dana Holgerson, Kendall Briles. I think they'll work together just fine. But Kendall Briles is not the most avuncular human being either. Mm-hmm. He's not, again, his personality is different than, I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying that, like, as far as, the outgoing members of the Briles family, I would not call him one of them.
Okay.
He's very much his father's son.
Yeah.
In that regard, personality-wise. And, but they all kind of are, really. Just thinking about them, they're kind of,
very similar personalities.
Yeah, all the dudes in the family are kind of similar, and but yeah, I think it'll be fine. I do. Todd Graham. I mean, I've never heard anybody talk about Todd Graham and not mention the whole, like, this guy's a bit much.
Yeah.
So that's what I wonder. Dana Holgerson. Most people like him. I've never heard players complain about him. I've seen him get too stressed and blame players for something when he probably shouldn't have said that out loud. But other than that, like, and I honestly don't think that I think Dana's going to take the Gary Patterson route. I think a lot of people think that Gary wants to be a full-time coach again. I don't think he does.
Yeah, I don't think he does either.
And I don't think he wants to go through the rigmarole, and I don't think if he's self-aware enough to know that, like, yeah, maybe I don't, he was really on edge those last couple years at TCU, where it's like, you were always a guy who was like jumpy, but it was full-blown tinfoil hat Gary, where everybody's against me. SMU had a plan, all those kind of things that were affecting his ability to coach. And if he can just go in and consult and then bounce. And look, I his situation at Baylor, I just think that ultimately probably wasn't a fit for what they were doing.
He's been a head coach for so long. I think he's a guy that probably wants to have that job again, but doesn't want to deal with everything that comes with it at this point in time, which I totally understand. And yeah, I always kind of compared it to Gary was sort of like your crazy uncle. And for a long time, he would show up to holidays and he would say some things that were kind of wild, but he was also, really good at what he did. And everybody loved him and he was fun to be around. And so you just kind of ignored it. But then those last few seasons, when things went the other way, it was like, oh man, this guy, maybe this guy needs to move on. So that's probably where he's at. And he's got a lot of interest outside of football. So hopefully he can find ways to fill his time. I don't think being an assistant coach, though, is something that's a great fit for him, even if it's a kind of cush analyst job, which he's had the last couple of years.
Yeah. By the way, Jack has sent me a text. Florida State also has a Quidditch team. So
dope.
Yeah. Or at least they did in 2019.
Pretty much every college does, Paul. They all have nerds.
Oh, okay. Well, not everybody can get laid in school, I guess.
What are the NIL packages like for the Quidditch teams?
Just Hagrid walking around trying to get people.
Specialized wands.
Yeah. No, it's with back to the TCU coaching. It's they're in such a transition from what they were to what they are now, to then even trying to figure out what you are year to year, which I think Sonny's been pretty candid about. Like, yeah, we kind of whiffed on trying to follow it up. Like the schedule was off. You don't realize the schedule's off until you're in the middle of it, and you're like, yeah, we're behind. And then once you realize you're behind, you either figure out a way to catch up or you have to start over. And I don't think they ever did either. Like he kind of said, they didn't really do either of those things. They just felt they were behind the whole time, didn't have the culture right. I'm still wondering who that was about. Like where, because it usually starts in like one little pocket. I mean, I don't think I wonder. I think I know, but I don't want to disparage someone. But like how much of a, sometimes you think about Remember the Titans, you get the one like guy who, didn't buy into the whole camp thing, and you get him off the team, and all of a sudden everything goes a lot smoother. Even though he might have some people with him.
I think there were a select few, but I do also just feel like that group. In my mind, going into the season, I was like, they're going to be so motivated because of what happened in the national title game, and nobody's talking about them. But I think they went the other direction, and they were just like, well, we made it really far. We had a great season, and we're just going to go out and do the same thing. And they didn't put in the same work. And Sonny, I mean, he's told you guys, he was like, honestly, it started with the coaching staff. Like, we didn't prepare properly. We weren't ready. We didn't understand how to handle that. And, they were sort of behind schedule from the jump. But, yeah, I mean, they're trying to get buy-in back. They're trying to get tough again.
Well, look, I think one of the things I've always thought about Dana Holgerson's teams is they're scrappy.
Yes.
Like they'll get in it. So if he can help influence that in the game planning, which he'll, I said Dana and Kendall get along. It's Dana and Andy Avalos who'll be working together, and Todd Graham and Kendall who'll be working. That I wonder. That one I do wonder about.
I wonder about that too. I will say about Todd, like he's known as a very gifted X's and O's guy, and there's a somewhat famous story in TCU circles where he came to a practice that first season Sonny was there, and Sonny was just like, tell me what watch you practice, tell me what you think. Like, give me an assessment of what you feel like this team can do. And he supposedly told me, like, they're going to win the Big 12, which, I mean, they didn't technically do that, but, he was the first one to kind of see, like, oh, yeah, this group's super talented. Like, if you can rein this in, then there's a lot of potential. And so he has a knack for understanding that. But, yes, he's going to have to work with Kendall Briles, and that's going to have to be a relationship that is at least cordial and professional.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird situation to like see these coaches that were at the top of a program, then all of a sudden being, I'm a consultant or whatever you are. So, but yeah, I know. I think it'll be interesting to see how that particular thing of an offensive coach coaching the defensive staff and the defensive coach coaching the offensive staff works out. And it may happen other places, but the way that it was described that way was, I was like, oh, well, that's a really, really innovative idea on how to do it, as opposed to bringing in a defensive consultant to consult the defense only. Like maybe you flip it around a little bit. And I think a little bit with Gary Patterson is, he can give some good ideas, but is he going to be able to be involved as he wants to be? When the guy that is now calling the plays is Dave Aranda, who's one of the is an equally brilliant defensive mind.
Right.
And, I'll say many things about Gary Patterson that, bother me, and I've been very frank about it. What I will never say is that he is not a coach football, because that dude is like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind when it comes to figuring out defenses. I mean, he is Belichick level smart. The difference is that Belichick doesn't have feelings and Gary does.
Well, he said he wanted to do a podcast. So Thursdays, triple option.
Oh,
Paul and GP.
Yeah. Look, I'll call him right now and set him up with the All In Network.
I don't know if he wants to do 5 days a week.
Yeah. That might be too
That
much.
might be, that might be a
I'll
deal
tell him,
breaker.
like, 2 days you can just sing for 30 minutes. Do music. Well,
He's only got like 5 songs. He doesn't have a vast catalog yet.
Well,
We'll have
I mean,
to
he
work
can
on
do
that.
covers.
He can do covers. That's true. Yeah.
yeah, like all right. And Friday's show, I'm going to do Amarillo by Morning.
It's like the Sirius XM Gary Patterson channel.
Yeah.